The Last Jedi is seen by many as the beginning of the end for the Star Wars franchise, and that's not to say that they haven't been able to find some success following that. They found some success when it comes to The Rise of Skywalker, but even then, that still made half as much as what The Force Awakens made, meaning there was a lot of people willing to give Disney Star Wars a shot, but following The Last Jedi, they didn't really care much about it. And then the last movie that Disney released Star Wars related was Solo, and that lost money for them. Since then, they've just been putting out content on the Disney Plus platform, and most of those shows have been losing money for them. The only success that they found was really The Mandalorian, but even then, the success was kind of minor, and they've pretty much squandered the goodwill that they had with that, at least with the first couple seasons following season 3. And then the next thing that they have being released theatrically is also The Mandalorian, and it's looking like that's probably not going to do too well for them, or at least from what we've seen, it's probably going to be a little or too little too late for the whole Star Wars franchise. But one of the reasons why a lot of people didn't like The Last Jedi was basically just Rian Johnson's characterization of Luke Skywalker, because he seems completely opposite of what he was in the original trilogy, and many people kind of had an objection to this. One of those was Mark Hamill himself, who even said in interviews at the time that he felt like it was such a different character. He would start referring to him as Jake Skywalker, because there's no way Luke Skywalker from the original trilogy would basically turn his back on the whole Jedi Order. And this is something that he's saying now that he kind of regrets speaking out about, and kind of in a way apologizing to Rian Johnson, but at the same time also offering up what he thought of as an actor that helped motivate the character. And me personally, if this is the direction they actually took the character with Mark Hamill's suggestions, it probably would have been much, much worse. Mark Hamill says there's no beef with Rian Johnson despite Last Jedi Disagreement. He made a great movie, and maybe I should have kept my Luke Skywalker criticism to myself. I don't agree that people need to keep their criticism to themselves, but I think there's a professionalism when it comes to the movie industry where if you're promoting a movie or something like that, you kind of just don't say anything about it. But it's not helped by the fact that a lot of these actors are given or put on promotional tours for a movie, and if they personally disagree with it, it's kind of hard for them to sell a movie that they don't have any confidence in themselves. So it's not necessarily his fault, but at the same time, I don't think people should just outright lie about it. He basically said what he could have said at the time, and if to me, when he was given those interviews during the promotional period for The Last Jedi, he never said anything so egregious like this is going to be terrible. Just basically like, I kind of disagree with him on the direction he's taking the character, but I tried to make it work because he's the visionary behind this. So I'm just doing my job and I'm trying to work with him on that one. And to me, that seems kind of a fair take, because actors don't necessarily know the full picture of how things are going to go into place once the movie is finalized. So there's lots of instances where they say they don't necessarily know what they're doing with the movie or how things are going to go together, and they trust the director to make it work. Obviously, in this situation, it didn't work. But as I said, if Mark Hamill actually had his way, it would have been absolutely abysmal, and I think performed much worse than what we currently got. Mark Hamill recently appeared on the Bullseye with Jesse Thorne podcast via IGN to promote his latest movie, Mike Flanagan's The Life of Chuck, and cleared up some of the confusion surrounding his thoughts on Rian Johnson's divisive Star Wars movie, The Last Jedi. Hamill returned as Luke Skywalker in the film, although he was not the hero some fans remembered. No, he's actually the polar opposite of that character. This Luke Skywalker was a miserable, hardened recluse living in self-imposed exile after his protege Ben Solo joined the dark side and became Kylo Ren. Luke blamed himself. And Rian Johnson basically tried to argue, it's like, well, no, the reason Luke Skywalker is the way he is because his nephew betrayed him, became Kylo Ren, and then killed all of his other students and destroyed his Jedi Order. And it's like, obviously that's something that would leave an impact on Luke Skywalker. But Mark Hamill tried to argue, it's like, well, Luke has seen planets get destroyed at this point. He never turned his back on Darth Vader or Anakin Skywalker. Even at the last movie, he thought like, no, there's still some good in him. And even though he's done all these bad things, there's still a path to redemption, and I'm never going to give up on him. That was what was great about the character of Luke Skywalker, is that he had that hardened resolve, and he would never turn his back, not only on the people that he felt actually had some redemption qualities to him, but also just even someone like Darth Vader, like there's always going to be a path to redemption, and he's never going to turn his back on that or the Jedi Order. But because he had a bad dream, then suddenly he thought like, well, my nephew might be become bad, so I have to kill him now. It's like that just seemed completely out of character for Luke Skywalker, and that's something that many fans of Star Wars thought like there's no way Luke Skywalker would have done this. And as a result, it caused a kind of a ripple effect that destroyed his whole order. And then he just kind of becomes who we saw in the movie. And a lot of people absolutely hated that. And I think it was a terrible direction for Rian Johnson to actually go in that way. But during their conversations, during the production of the movie, Mark Hamill basically talked with Rian Johnson about it, saying like, even if this isn't what we're doing in the movie, can I at least create my own backstory for the character to kind of motivate me as an actor to make sense of why Luke Skywalker would be this way? And this is what Mark Hamill said. And I think this is just a terrible direction if they actually did try to make it this way. The fact that I went public with my dissatisfaction with the motivation for Luke becoming a suicidal hermit might have colored things in a way that maybe I should have kept that to myself, Hamill admitted. No, I think a lot of people would have come to these same conclusions, but it definitely is kind of a point of criticism towards Disney Star Wars. If you could say, like, see, even Mark Hamill himself, it disagrees with the direction that Rian Johnson took it. But I mean, even if he never said anything about it, people would still have the same criticism. But I kept saying to Rian, this would just make Luke double down even. And he said, well, your class at the Jedi Academy were wiped out. I said, Rian, I saw entire planets wiped out. If anything, Luke doubles down and hardens his resolve in the face of adversity. So that's all. Hamill believed Luke would become even more of a hero and an advocate for the Jedi in the wake of Ben Solo's betrayal. In order to go in the complete opposite direction that Johnson scripted, Hamill needed to convince himself that Luke was possible of such darkness. Then he says, like, asked if he could come up with his own backstory. And this is the backstory that Mark Hamill came up with for the character. I thought, what could make someone give up devotion to what is basically a religious entity to give up being a Jedi? Hamill then explained, well, the love of a woman. So he falls in love with the woman. He gives up being a Jedi. They have a child together. At some point, the child, as a toddler, picks up an unattended lightsaber, pushes the button, and is killed instantly. The wife is so full of grief, she kills herself. I thought that would be because I hear these terrible stories about these children who find unattended guns and wind up dead. That resonated with me so deeply, but Rian didn't have the time to tell the backstory like that. I'm guessing he just wanted to brief things to explain it, and to me, it didn't justify it. Now, on the one hand, I agree the story that we came up with in the movie doesn't justify it, but if they actually went in this direction, that would have been much, much worse. I mean, first of all, trying to equate firearm ownerships to it being a religious entity, I mean, that's a little bit ridiculous, but Mark Hamill isn't necessarily all there mentally. I think he actually has mental problems because of years of alcohol abuse and other things like that. So that could account for why he kind of goes crazy and spurgs out on social media and stuff like that, because there is something physically wrong with his brain at this point. And also just trying to use it as an opportunity to shoehorn in a political agenda like this, which to me is just kind of ridiculous. And that's been a problem with a lot of Star Wars stuff, actually in recent years. And one of the criticisms for it is that it no longer feels like Star Wars. It feels like just people working on the show or movie is just using it as an opportunity to lecture the audience over the current day politics and other things like that. And that's been even more divisive than what we've seen with The Last Jedi, because for all of its faults and for all its negative scores amongst audiences and on websites like Rotten Tomatoes, at least a lot of people weren't saying that it was pushing, at least, well, I mean, to an extent it was, but not as pushing a political agenda as what we've seen with a lot of the recent properties for Star Wars. So if they actually went in this direction, then I think things could have been much worse for the movie, to the point where I don't think even Rise of Skywalker would have been profitable if that's what they decided to do. That said, and I told Rian this, despite the fact that I disagreed with their choices for Luke, I'm going to do everything within my power to make your screenplay work as best I can, Hamill added. And the only thing unfortunate about this is I've heard comments from fans who think that I somehow dislike Rian Johnson, and nothing could be further from the truth. So that's what he's saying now about this. Still, I find, in a way, it's like you can agree with people on one thing and disagree with them on others. I agree with him that this was not the Luke Skywalker from the original movies. This was a different character. Rian Johnson did a terrible job adapting him for his version of it. If he wanted to have Luke go in the way that he did for his movie, they did not explain it well. But I also disagree with Mark Hamill in the direction that he came up with, or the backstory he came up with for the character. And I think that would have been much worse. And it explains, and actually it justifies his character arc even less than what Rian Johnson came up with. At least That's my opinion on this. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Whose backstory do you think is actually better for the character? And do you actually agree with Mark Hamill to an extent that Rian Johnson was wrong, but also disagree with him in that his direction for the character was also wrong? Or do you think that no matter what, Luke Skywalker would have been the character that we knew from the original trilogy? And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.